Welcome to the Camera Project. I'm Jay.
And I'm Josh.
And I'm Allison.
Allison!
Hi.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
How are you doing?
I'm alright.
Everybody, this is Allison. She is our newest official member of the Camera Project.
Yep.
She is raising our intelligence level.
Oh.
It's been pointed out that we are not the most intelligent people.
It's been pointed out very often, actually.
Yeah.
So
we've just posted a single video for our Olympus OMD-EM5 Mark II. Wow, that's a mouthful. So we had a bunch of extra stuff that we wanted to cover. We have some additional gripes, a couple cool things, a couple things that just didn't quite fit into the main review. So we figured that this would be a good way for us to discuss the camera and also show you a couple of clips that we recorded and didn't get a chance to put into the video.
yeah, and this way we figured whoever wants the short explanation has it with the video, and if you want to dig more in depth on the camera, you can watch this as kind of a follow-up deep dive into the camera itself.
Right. So let's just jump in with the sort of body of the camera. Alison, what was your thought on the grip?
The grip didn't stand out to me as being a problem, but then again, I have probably a smaller hand than you guys. And I was also shooting with the prime lens, so it wasn't terribly front heavy when I was shooting with it. So I didn't get, I mean, I'm used to shooting with a Canon 5D, which has a pretty substantial grip, so it wasn't quite as solid in my hand as that camera is, but it didn't jump out at me as a problem.
Right, and I agree. If you're shooting with one of the primes, this grip is totally sufficient. When you put this lens on, the 12-40, it becomes a little front heavy to me, even when I put on the optional grip. But that is one thing we wanted to talk about. There is an optional grip which actually comes in two parts. This is the one part which is just the grip, and it gives you an extra shutter and ring button over here. If you want, you can get another part which will actually extend your battery life, so it's actually a battery grip then as well. So it does improve the ergonomics. If I roughly put it on, basically you can screw it on at the bottom of the camera.
Right. I'd say, though, it may improve the ergonomics a bit, but it doesn't really solve the problem.
As you can see, it makes it, you know, ergonomically better, but also blocking the battery door, not ideal.
Right.
And
so
it's another accessory you have to buy.
Right, exactly. So, you know, if it's something that you really feel strongly about, I say you go for it. However, it's not perfect. But the other thing that we wanted to bring up was that this body is weatherproofed. And it's the same thing with that lens, that Pro lens that Josh has there. So when you put that kit together, then you've got a nice, you know, camera that you can take out when it's moderately crappy outside.
Right, and I like that about this Olympus Pro lens and the camera too. You can take it out in the rain and not be too worried about it. Now, as I said, I think this lens is a hair heavy for this camera, all around a great lens, but we have actually had the chance to play with some other lenses now, and the 14-140, which gives you kind of the all-around travel lens. It's obviously not as fast as this lens. It's variable aperture throughout the zoom range, but it's also weather sealed and it's much lighter than this. So ergonomically it handles a little better, and it gives you kind of that weather sealing benefit, but also the zoom range. And to me, I think that's my sweet spot for this camera, to use sort of an all-around lens when I need the ultimate in zooming power, and then for my fast lenses go to something like Alison was saying, the fast primes like the 17 and the 25, which are both excellent. But the super zoom is great if you're walking around and traveling and don't want to necessarily carry another lens or have the bulk of the fast Pro lenses.
The other thing that the camera comes with actually is an external flash. We never touched on the flash at all. It's nice that they include it. I think it's important that they include it, but it is a little bit too bad it's not actually on the camera itself.
There is an added benefit with this flash. After the shoot, we had gone out to dinner and we were sitting there, and we were outside but sitting under a tent, and we tried using this as a bounce flash, and that's really cool because it gives you all the sort of extendability of an external flash. It lets you tilt it, it lets you turn it, so you can actually have a nice bounce flash, and it is probably more powerful than your average built-in flash. So there's some good things that come with it, and some bad, of course, just that it's not built in and you have to think to carry it with you.
Allison, you want to hit on the menus?
Looking at it for the first time, most of the menu, like the things I really needed to figure out, I was able to figure out, but there were certain things that was a little bit more complicated in, you know, finding where I needed to go to change certain settings. The most notable one being the ISO, because that's clearly like one of your 3 most important variables, and it took me kind of a while to find it. But after I was telling Josh the next day, like, oh, that was so weird, it was really hard to find the ISO to change that. He showed me a different way of doing it using the like a switch that would change the function of the 2 dials on the top of the camera. And once he showed me that, I was like, oh, that's really great, easy way to do it. And it was just not readily apparent.
So I think what Alison is experiencing is sort of what I mentioned about how this camera scales from the amateur level sort of up to the pro level, where it's definitely designed for the pro user to be able to go in and very specifically control how they want the camera to use. It can be set in a sort of automatic mode, which makes it good for the amateur user to use. But for someone who is interested in becoming a pro user, or like Alison, who is a pro but is picking up the camera for the first time, it can be a little bit confusing to kind of get into the way that they have everything set up. It's not as intuitive as I think you might hope it to be.
Yeah, the menus are deep and they tend to be a little confusing.
Yeah, so this camera, it's great, and I was able to kind of just right off the bat do the bare bones things I needed to do, take a great looking picture without knowing anything about going further into it, because the menu was a little bit complicated. But I think that the average user who buys this camera is probably the sort of person who will be willing to spend that time with the manual, and interested in going online and finding tutorials and finding reviews and finding out how to access and make the most of all these additional features. And I mean, I think that that's suggested by the fact that they're interchangeable lenses and the price point. Like, if you're not interested in learning more about how to use the camera and everything it can do for you, you're probably not spending, what is this, in the $1,000 range. You're probably not going to spend that much money on a camera just to point and shoot. If you're investing this kind of money on a system, really get to know it and take that time to learn all the different functions and find your way through the menu.
So as we said, there were a couple things that didn't quite make the cut into the video, and here's one of them from my friend Josh, who has surprisingly another gripe.
Another thing that I don't love about this camera is the EVF. Now, don't get me wrong, I actually do love the EVF. It's really nice magnification, really responsive, but there's one little thing about the EVF that I do dislike, and that's sometimes when you're shooting, it'll go into a quick sleep mode. Now, there is a setting you could shut this off, but it's essentially a standby mode designed to save battery. And if it's enabled, sometimes you'll find that you'll bring the camera to your eye and it'll take 2 or 3 seconds and you'll miss the shot. I just wish it was more responsive and would turn back on right away. So again, that was a minor gripe, but still something that was a little bit annoying when we were shooting.
So you don't love the EVF, but you do love the EVF?
Yes.
You don't love the EVF?
Correct.
Okay, got it. I just want to make sure I'm clear.
Yes. Another thing I found really weird on this camera, and it's a micro four thirds thing in general, is that there's no live depth of field preview. It's kind of weird to me that in a modern day mirrorless camera, there was no way to write in at least a menu option for you to get live depth of field preview. Instead, you have to hit a depth of field preview button just like I had to do on my SLR, and I wish there was a mode where I could just be viewing depth of field and exposure live, like it is on the Sony A7 line of cameras. Now again, I'm new to micro four thirds, and I assume this is how all micro four thirds cameras handle this, but I found it was interesting that it still needs a depth of field preview button to actually see your live depth of field. Whether I'm shooting at 1.8 or f/22, I see the same image through the screen unless, of course, I hit the depth of field preview button. And old school photographers are thinking, okay, that's always been that way, but that's kind of my point. It's always been this way. And I'm getting rid of the mirror, and I know when we were using the Sony A7 series, that camera shows you your live depth of field at all times. Now I could see the argument for not doing it, but I just kind of wish there was an option to see live depth of field without having to hit the button. It just seems like with the mirrorless live technology, there's no reason to have to hit that extra button. Of course, you could argue that you'll focus faster in lower light if you have the lens open wide all the way, and I get that, but Sony's getting around that limitation somehow, so I'm just kind of curious why Olympus can't be doing that as well, and I'm kind of curious what you guys think. Please leave us a comment. Maybe I'm crazy, maybe this is normal on almost every camera other than the Sony, but tell me what you think. I'm curious.
Let us know. Let us know if your camera has it. Let us know if you know which cameras do. we're curious to follow up on this, so this will be something that we'll talk about, going forward for sure.
All right, so, Jay was teasing me for having a lot of gripes, but I also had a lot of positive things to say about the camera, and when we were shooting, I had a few other things to say there, so let's take a look. Now, overall video on this camera is good. It's not great. It's certainly an improvement over what Olympus has offered in the past. We have full iframe and a selection of frame rates and bit rates. The image stabilization really helps you smooth out your video. Now, we tried to use it as a Steadicam, and a Steadicam it is not, so don't try to walk around with this, it'll get weird. But if you're just using it handheld to smooth out your hand motion, it's really fantastic for that.
Plus, the other thing is that it actually has decent battery life. Now, if you're gonna be out all day or using the screen a lot or using a flash, you probably wanna get a second battery, but that's pretty good advice no matter what camera you use. So I'd say in general, battery life falls right in the range of good to very good. The other thing is that the shutter on this camera is great. The mechanical shutter is very quiet. In fact, I think you would have a hard time hearing it if you were out here right now, because the wind's blowing, the horns are blowing, people are talking. It also has an electronic shutter if you want to do truly silent if you're in a church or some other venue. But under most circumstances, that mechanical shutter is really, really great. So you had one more positive thing, but I had two more positive things, is what you're saying.
Right. I had some more.
There were some positive,
but
yeah.
But you had more.
So all right, real quick, battery life. I mean, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. It's good. The video performance, we touched on it. I think that for me anyway, the Panasonic video performance in Micro Four Thirds is still top of the line. This camera's close though. It's getting closer.
Yeah, they're certainly stepping up their game in terms of what they've had in the past. It has 60p in 1080. I would love to see the 96 kind of option like you have on the GH4, and of course 4K, but I'm not expecting that necessarily from this camera. I'm glad it has the options it has, and of course with the stabilization it does become an interesting video option. As we said in the video, don't start running with it and think that it's going to smooth out every little jerk, but if you're hand holding and just staying still, it will be significantly helpful in reducing all the little shakes from your handheld shooting.
And if you're mainly a stills photographer and that's what you buy a camera for, this is entirely reasonable to expect to be able to take little videos to go along with your stills. I mean, yeah. The quality is good. It's just not what I would choose if I was going to go out to film something specifically.
Right.
It's a very fine line there where the video function in this camera, unlike the Fuji, which honestly the video function was just basically unusable. Terrible. The video function on this camera is very good. It's just not the best video that we've seen come out of a camera of this size or even in this Micro Four Thirds.
The other thing we touched on there was the mechanical shutter, and you talked about how quiet it was, and I totally agree. It's a really quiet shutter. But it's also been improved in that it can go up to 1/8,000th of a second mechanically, which is really nice because the previous generation only had 1/4,000th. So having that extra quick shutter response is really nice. And of course, they've also added the electronic shutter, which allows for multiple things. It allows you to shoot up to 1/16,000th of a second, and it also gives you a silent mode. Now, of course, full caveats with silent mode. It's susceptible to rolling shutter like any electronic shutter is, so use it with caution. But if you're shooting in somewhere where you know you need to be absolutely silent, it's there, and it's a great option to have.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, I just want to reiterate that I think that the mechanical shutter on this is fantastic. It's very quiet, and it's very quick, actually. I mean, surprisingly quick. So there were also a couple additional features of the camera that we just didn't have time to cover, but we did film. So let's take a look at what those are. One of the features that you've probably heard about with this camera is the high resolution mode. And it's actually kind of a brilliant piece of technology. Because the sensor is controlled by the camera, because this stabilization, what the camera is able to do is take 8 pictures and move the sensor just by 1 pixel in 4 different directions in order to get a sort of composite of the frame that you have. So it's a little bit like HDR, it's a little bit like panorama, except you're not getting a wider picture. What you're getting is a higher resolution photo. So you can get a 40 megapixel photo out of a 16 megapixel sensor. Now, we played with it a bunch, and honestly, the jury's out on it. our opinion is if you need a 40 megapixel picture, you should probably buy a full frame camera because everything has to be very still for it to work. However, we started to get a little bit creative with it, and some of the results we got are kind of interesting. So we're not ready to write it off yet. However, I don't think you should buy the camera for that feature. It's a cool thing to have, but it's not necessarily the top feature of the camera.
So one of my favorite things about this camera is the Olympus Wi-Fi app. And you'll notice it's pointing at me, and that's because I'm not even holding the camera. Jay is. And I can do anything that I could do from the camera. For instance, I can tap to focus on my head, or I can take a photo. I can even set it to the mode where I can tap to focus and take the photo. So of course I have all these great functions. I can change the settings live on the phone, and I can shoot stealthily this way. The other thing I can do is I can go and review all the pictures as long as I'm shooting RAW plus JPEG, transfer them instantly to my phone, and send them out to friends and family. So overall, no complaints at all with the Olympus app. I found it really great and really responsive.
The first night I used the camera, I was very interested in using the Wi-Fi function. I am used to shooting with a 5D that I got in 2010, so I haven't even used any cameras with Wi-Fi. I know that's a standard function now, but I was able to get the Wi-Fi set up while, kind of sitting in the park with my dog. It wasn't terribly difficult to figure it out. And all the different functions that Josh talks about are really great, really awesome. They were new to me, so I found them especially exciting. But what I found as someone who, wants to be able to take a photo and share it immediately, this is an incredible function and an incredible app and feature for bloggers. As much as I, shudder to encourage any kind of selfie culture.
Let me take a selfie.
I think that this camera is fantastic for that. If you're doing this like outfit of the day bullshit, like whatever it is.
Would you say that's something you see yourself doing a lot, Alison? Taking lots of selfies?
Look at my outfit. So no, but I am a different kind of terrible Brooklyn stereotype. I like taking pictures of my food. If you have a food blog, a fashion blog, any kind of blog, this is a nice little compact camera that has all the Wi-Fi functionality to get that picture right on Instagram or right on your blog, or allow you to frame a photo in a little bit of a more different or interesting way than you would normally be able to if you didn't have that kind of second screen remote functionality with the app.
As far as the apps that I've used, this one is probably up there.
Yeah, it's really smooth, and the ability to tap to focus so quickly and smoothly. I found there was really little lag between the phone and what was actually happening on the screen. It was just impressive overall, and it just was easy, and that's what it should be.
So that pretty much does it for us. Thank you for tuning in. Please leave us comments. Please say hi to Alison. Thank you, Alison, for joining us.
Yeah, this is going to be the first of many with featuring Alison as our third new correspondent.
Yeah, and we hope to see you guys again soon.
Bye.
All right, bye guys. Please subscribe.